Your personal branding is going to grow with you as you move along in your business. Almost selfish to be talking about your own story, but remember, showing your journey and showing where it is you came from and where you are now can be so impactful. What do I want people to say about me if my name comes up at the table? And if you think about it in that way, it makes it so much easier to... Welcome to the Fuel Your Flow podcast. I am your host, Valerie Feghali, physical therapist turned software CEO and business coach for health and wellness coaches. We are going to be talking about all things health and business. They might be more closely related than you think. So let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome back to Fuel the Flow podcast. Today we are talking all about personal branding. There's a lot of confusion, especially in the wellness and fitness industry, around personal branding and what it actually is. A lot of business owners that I meet up with, especially new coaches or new business owners, they think that your branding has to do with your logo, your fonts, your colors, where really those are your elements, but not your actual brand. Your brand is all about your reputation. Brand equals reputation. It's what you want people to think of when your name comes up at the dinner table. How do you want them to feel? What do you want them to relate that to? And what do you want them to think of when your name comes up at the table? We are all building a personal brand. So everyone on this earth has essentially a personal brand. Whether or not you are really growing that or capitalizing on that is another story. However, in 2026 and moving forward, personal branding is going to be critical. It's going to be one of the most important things that sets your business apart from other businesses. Now, so many businesses are using AI. They are, creating digital courses. There's more noise on the internet now more than ever. Now, there is still a ton of opportunity. Don't get me wrong. However, people are questioning what they see and they're a little bit more skeptical about what they are looking at. Are they going to put their credit card down on something that they have no relation to or they don't know is actually real? Maybe the product looks interesting to them, but they have no idea whether that product is actually real, who created it, if it has any substance or background that is science backed. And so having your personal branding attached to that is going to be more and more important as we move forward. Now, your products are different from your personal branding. So you could have a digital course or some sort of signature program that's not necessarily you as the person. It has a separate name, it's a separate product, but your personal brand is what is endorsing that product. So when people see that you are the creator or the facilitator, the leader of that product, and they know you as a person, they've started to relate to you and connect with you, that builds trust in that product and they're way more likely to buy. Your personal branding really has nothing to do with your colors, your fonts, your logos, anything that you can create in Canva. These are just your visuals. These have added recognition for your brand. So when people see that, they may tie it to your personal brand and know that what they're looking at is you. It has something to do with you. And those are great. Those are important, but that's not what actually your branding is all about. So think of it this way. I was at a dinner event earlier last week and I was with a bunch of women and Lewis Howes came up in conversation. And we were talking about Lewis Howes and his School of Greatness podcast. Everyone at that table knew of his story. They knew that he had a career-ending injury, that he spent years living on his brother's couch, that he went through major depression and then turned it around and has helped millions of people with self-development and personal growth. And so we all knew this story, and that is really his brand. That's what it's all about. I can guarantee you, if anybody who didn't know who he was sitting at that table immediately after dinner went and downloaded some of his podcast episodes. And that is the power of personal branding. And then they know this person created this. I know a little bit about his story. Maybe I can relate to his story. And they're way more likely to invest in his products when they have that personal connection and that relatability. It's also a tool to help people remember what you're all about, right? When you have stories and you have relatability and human connection, with tied in with your personal branding, people are way more likely to remember what your products are actually for. Like we know that Lewis Howes has products for personal and self-development because of his stories and the stories that he's tied in with his personal branding. So what this means is that we really do have to share more, but we have to share in a way that's genuine and sustainable. What I see a lot of coaches get stuck in is that they get stuck in this trap of feeling like they need to put on the perfect example of what it is they are selling. And I got into this trap when I first started as a holistic health coach as well. When I first started coaching my one-on-one clients, I felt like I needed to present myself as if I had it all together, that I had the perfect morning routine, the perfect diet, that my fitness schedule was on point and never missed. And I created this gap between my clients and customers who potentially wanted to work with me and where they were at the moment. And instead of them seeing themselves in my story and seeing me as somebody relatable, that no longer existed, because it was like, oh, here's this person who, lives in my local community, yet she's so far in the other direction that I can't even possibly imagine getting myself there. So hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you are a health or wellness professional and you haven't yet checked out The Wellness Vault, you're missing out. The Wellness Vault is a content hub for coaches who create their own plans and programs for their clients, run workshops, create digital guides, and so much more. You can now do all of this in a fraction of the time so you can focus on your clients and grow your business faster than ever with more you time. The link to the Wellness Vault is in the show notes, so go sign up for your free trial today. Showing your journey and showing where it is you came from and where you are now can be so impactful. What I'm not saying is to share every single trauma, every single struggle, obstacle that you are dealing with, especially if it doesn't relate to the service that you help other people with and the problem that you help other people solve. What you want to do is share the stories and the obstacles that you have overcome, that you have a lesson from that relates to your community and the people that you are serving. So if they can see yourself in your story and in your journey, even if you are not the picture perfect person of health or whatever it is they're trying to achieve, if they can see that you started at one point and you've come so far, then they can start to relate to what it is that you do and relate to you as a human being. And that human connection, that personal relatability is so crucial in this day and age. It's only going to get more important as we move forward, as there's more bots, as we don't know if we're talking to AI or if we're talking to a real human. We don't know if the product was even created by a human, if they even exist in the loop or not. And so having that story, having that connection is going to be vital. People nowadays are more isolated than they have ever been before. People are working from home. They're on their computers. They're oftentimes working with technology because that's the way things are moving. And so when you have a personal brand, it's a lot easier to build community around you. Now, whether or not you are the facilitator in that actual community doesn't necessarily have to be that case, right? For example, going back to this dinner where we were all talking about Lewis Howes, we all felt like part of something bigger, like part of a community, because we could all relate to his story and because we all knew who he was. So that brings people together. So just because you may not always be the facilitator of the communities that have something to do with your personal branding, you are still a part of that in some way and helping people just simply by having that brand, by sharing those stories, by being the example. And so I want you to think of your personal branding as really bridging the gap between isolation and then true human connection and trust. Another myth or misconception around personal branding is that coaches think that they need to be famous or really well known in order to have a personal brand. And that simply is not true. Again, we all have a personal brand. It's just whether or not we're really building that personal brand that matters. So your personal brand, again, is simply your reputation and what people think of when they think of you. It's the emotion that's provoked when they think of you and the type of thing or service that is thought of when they think of you. And so you don't need to be another Jenna Kutcher or Kayla Epstein's. All you need to do is be trustworthy, real, and raw. And when that comes across as authentic and true, that is when your personal brand really starts to grow and take off. And your personal brand is what's going to back up your products. Another thing that personal brands do are they allow you to pivot. Because if you get stuck in a product that's your entire company is all about this one specific product, your name is on the product and everything, and then as time goes on, that product becomes less and less valuable because things change. Think about all the people who had products before AI came along, and now AI is taking over those products and those brands. If that were to happen, which it will with time, things change, new things come out, we're always going to have to innovate and come up with something new as time changes and something better. You can more easily pivot when you have a personal brand around you. So I've seen so many business owners who have built up their personal brand sunset products. So they completely discontinue many of their products and they move on to something else seamlessly because people trust them. So they're no longer following just the product, they're following you as a leader and as a guide. Think about Amy Porterfield, for example, right now. She has a very well-known product, DCA, Digital Course Academy, that she has sold for years. And I believe she just sunsetted that product. I know there's been a lot of talk around it. I believe she's no longer doing that as far as I know. And she's moving on to something else.
I'm about to tell you something that's going to sound absolutely crazy. After almost a decade of teaching digital courses, after building a program that served over 28,000 students on their journey of creating freedom and flexibility in their lives, after launching Digital Course Academy year after year after year, I'm doing something I never thought I'd do. I'm closing the doors to new enrollment.
But because everybody knows who she is, or people in her, who can benefit from her services know who she is, then it's much easier for her to pivot into something new because she's built up that trust amongst the community. And actually, people are going to want her new next thing right away, right? Once she releases something new, the best time to capitalize on that is going to be in the beginning when it's still in the beta program, because people want that new thing and they trust who she is and they know that she's going to make it good, whatever she does. And so that's what personal branding can do for you. None of us want to be stuck in this box doing the same thing for the rest of our career. And having a personal brand allows us to expand and pivot and move in different directions as time changes. So here's what I challenge you to do as you start to build out your personal brand. Start to share in a genuine and authentic way. Talk about what you're doing throughout the day. Talk about previous stories that relate to the service that you provide and the problem that you solve for your community and your clients. And talk about it publicly. This doesn't have to be just within your programs, but have it be on your workshops, have it be on your social media pages. If you have a blog, have it be there. You don't necessarily need to be a public speaker. You don't have to have a podcast in order to get this going. Your personal branding is going to grow with you as you move along in your business. So start sharing things about you that are going to serve as lessons for other people to take action or see themselves in your story and build up some of that confidence in order to move forward towards their goals or their desires. When they can see themselves in your story and they can see that someone has done it before them, come a long way in their own personal journey, then they too start to believe in themselves. So think of it as, what do I want people to say about me if my name comes up at the table? What do I want that reputation to be? What service do I want them to think of? What stories do I want them to come up with and talk about? What are those things that you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? And that is how you build up your personal brand. So think of it that way. I challenge you, put yourself out there, start sharing some of the lessons that you've learned and the journey that you've gone through publicly. I'll see you on the next one. I hope you enjoyed our conversation from today. Any links we discussed will be in the show notes below. Also, we would be incredibly grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review. This helps us keep the podcast going so that we can continue to provide value for all of you. I hope we see you on the next one.